Now I'm going to introduce yourself to Chris Spurling. He joined the MineMax as a software architect and leader of the development team in 2011. With nearly 20 years experience in the mining software, Chris has excelled as managing all the aspects of the product lifecycle, including planning, designing, development, testing, and deployment. His extensive expertise in the mine scheduling enables him to deeply understand the complexities of these challenges, while his talent for designing flexible and user-friendly software sets him apart. In 2023, Chris has moved to be MineMax Product Manager, where he now oversees the product direction and day-to-day operations. His leadership plays a crucial role in driving MineMax success. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Jonathan, for that presentation. It's great examples of the power and flexibility of MineMax Scheduler. So I'm Chris Spurling. I've been with MineMax for 13 years. I am the product manager and software architect for MineMax Scheduler. MineMax Scheduler is the mining industry's premier strategic mine planning solution. It uses mixed integer linear programming to generate optimal mining schedules. The first sale of MineMax was way back in 1998 and has now helped over 80 mining companies in over 40 countries to maximise the value of their assets. It's fair to say that in the 25 years that MineMax has been sold, that it's added billions of dollars in value to the mining industry. Okay, my presentation today is all about MineMax Scheduler development. I will be taking you through and giving you an overview of the features that we've added in the last 24 months. I will then be taking you through the Now, Next, Later roadmap. For those unfamiliar with a Now, Next, Later roadmap, now is our current focus. These are development items that we're currently working on. Next, these are high priority enhancements that we will be tackling in the next phase of development, so next year. And later is our long-term vision for MineMax Scheduler. Okay, we'll get stuck straight in. For the features overview, the last 24 months we've had 4 major releases of MineMax Scheduler, each with an aim of these key areas, so usability, UI and UX enhancements, simplifying customer models, so reducing the number of processes that you need to generate to model certain things, and numerous reporting improvements. So the first feature I'm going to discuss is advanced sliding window. We added this feature back in, I think it was 7.5. It allows you to define sliding window parameters and optimality tolerances for certain sections of your schedule. Particularly useful if you've got quarterly periods to start and then yearly periods later on. You can run larger windows to cover those quarterly periods. Previously, you had to run it in separate optimization steps. Just a bit of a tip here, you should consider running larger windows earlier on where your confidence in your economic, geological and operational factors is high, and running shorter windows with larger optimality tolerances later in your schedule when the level of uncertainty is high. And if you do that, typically you will get faster solve times. Another nice feature that we added is sliding window rewind. Pretty cool little feature here. When the solver hits an infeasible window, it will step back and include previous periods and try again. This improves the chance of basically finding a feasible solution. Nice little animation there showing you how it actually works. We added greater control over the vertical rate of advance. We now allow you to define, use an attribute as a multiplier to control the proportion that each bench contributes to the maximum benches per period constraint. This basically allows greater flexibility. You can adjust the VRA based on depth, geological variations, mineral distribution, and even just tons and volume. Multi-attribute reblocking, we made it extremely easy to reblock based on multiple attributes. Previously, you had to do this either in Excel and use complex import expressions. We've had some very positive feedback on this feature. Stockpile constraints. We simplified the process of constraining movements in and out of individual stockpiles and stockpile groups. You now have the ability to find maximum cumulative and difference constraints for those stockpiles and groups. Previously, you had to define processes for each stockpile and then constrain those processes, which was quite ugly. So this is an example of model simplification. Stockpile capacity changes over time. Previously, it was just a fixed capacity for each stockpile over the entire schedule. We now allowed you to define capacity per time period for each stockpile or stockpile group. So this allows you to model like the ramp up and ramp down of stockpiles, even just opening and closing of stockpiles as well. So, nice feature, that one. And we also allowed you to use use stockpiles within CapEx, so you can now expand a maximum constraint for your stockpiles or stockpile groups, which obviously allows you to model the opening of a stockpile. Process categories. Now, this is a feature that probably a lot of people don't use because they're unaware of its flexibility, but we now allow you to define what we call custom process categories, which gives context to processes and groups processes together. You can then use these process categories to filter a number of the lists and grids within the UI. So if you've got processes defined that represent material for certain areas, you can create separate categories for those areas and then concentrate on just the constraints for those processes in the constraints grid. If you use the built-in or the standard process categories, we've got these categories called direct, stockpile, and reclaim. Now these control what movements the reporting series report on. So if you then add your processes to stockpiled, for example, with say if you've got a truck hours process that represents the 2 stockpile truck hours, you can then assign that to the stockpile standard category, and when you review that series within the chart, it will automatically report on just the stockpile movements for that process. And there's also a trucking standard process. So if you add all your truck hour processes to that category, you will get the nice trucking tabular report as well. Just recently in 7.7, we released maximum open pits and pit groups. This is a very nice feature that's a number of people have requested. So basically what this does is constrain the maximum number of open pits or pit groups at the end of each period. Okay. Previously, you just had maximum active pit groups, so which I'll show you has a few issues. This is an example here of a mine that's got a simple maximum mining constraint. As you can see, it's mining from multiple pit groups. It's not continuously mining those pit groups. You can see that in the little blue that I've highlighted. So it's, starting mining, switching pit groups, which is not very practical. This is the maximum active, which looks a bit better. So this is an example with maximum active pit groups of 2. You can see that's no longer mining a lot of pit groups per period, but it's still stopping and starting and leaving big gaps between, and switching between pit groups, which it still isn't very practical. Also has the issue where if it completely mines a pit, then it may not mine up to the total mining constraint either, because it's already has hit that maximum active of 2. And this is an example of using the new open pit groups constraint. So as you can see here, a much more practical strategic schedule. It's not chopping and changing. It's continuing mining before opening and completing mining of the pit groups before opening others. Also in 7.7, we added opening and closure costs. So you can now model the financial requirements needed to initiate mining in a pit and pit group. And you can also account for the closure costs associated with completely mining a pit. So another example of model simplification. You no longer need to use CapEx to model this. It's all now built in. That's my overview of the features that we've released in the last 24 months. Now I'm going to jump into our roadmap. So our current focus, now these are items that our development team are currently working on and will be released in the next version of Scheduler. Few reporting improvements. You will be able to export all the tabular reports to the Datamine file format, and including the new extended Datamine file format that's being released shortly. Also the ability to update an existing Datamine block model with schedule information. So you will no longer have to load up your Datamine block model and your CSV and do a merge within Studio OP. A few modelling enhancements. We're going to allow CapEx to expand not just maximums, but minimums and cumulative constraints. So if you're using cumulative constraints to model capacities of things, then you'll be able to expand those capacities through through the CapEx. We're going to allow the cost of a CapEx to spread over multiple periods. We're going to allow maximum benches per pit groups. So it's currently only on pits. And the per period minimum mounted mine constraint, which is a global setting at the moment, will be able to be adjusted per time period. A few enhancements to MineMax Scheduler Enterprise. There's probably not a lot of enterprise customers in the room. For those unfamiliar with MineMax Scheduler Enterprise, the only difference between Professional and Enterprise Edition is that your projects are stored in a central SQL Server database instead of locally on your machine. Okay. We're going to improve the value proposition of MineMax Scheduler Enterprise. We plan to improve multi-user collaboration by adding what we call project edit modes. So there's a exclusive mode where you can open a project and no other users can make changes to that project, but they can open a read-only copy of it. We're going to introduce a partial mode where you can have 2 people open the same project but edit and run different scenarios, okay, at the same time. And then also basically read-only mode. So if you don't want to guarantee you don't want to accidentally make any changes to your project, you can just open a read-only copy of it. bulk scenario generation. So there are a number of customers that run sensitivity analysis. So they run hundreds of scenarios in MineMax Scheduler. So as you can imagine, it's quite painful to generate that many scenarios. So what we're allowing you to do in the next version of Scheduler is to bulk generate scenarios from an XML configuration file. It will have the ability essentially to create hundreds of different scenarios with variations to any parameter within the scenario. There's also an option to clone an existing scenario and then make changes to that scenario. So you can set up a template first and then create an XML that copies that template and makes certain changes. And as I said, this is a benefit for those customers who are running hundreds of scenarios for sensitivity analysis. Another enhancement to MineMax Scheduler Enterprise, we will going to allow 2 simultaneous optimizations in both MineMax Scheduler and the batch optimizer. So if you're running on a very sort of grunty server or dual CPU server, then you've got the option now to run 2 simultaneous optimizations within the same project. Okay, on to our near-term focus. So these are high priority development items for next year. The first one is stockpile degradation. So we're going to allow customers to model the degradation of material on a stockpile. Okay, so this is adjusting the recovery based on how many years material is sat on the stockpile. We are going to improve the reporting on your reserves, so on your imported reserves. We're going to add custom charting and pivot tables so you can inspect those imported reserves. This is basically going to improve validation of your import expressions and also your reblocking strategies as well, because we're going to have some nice binning reports as well. Optimization performance. I know this is a big issue for a number of you. Optimizations can be slow. The bigger the models, the slower it. The longer these optimizations take. We have a number of ideas on how to improve our existing MILP solver. Our ops research guys have been experimenting with a few things. They're quite confident they can make some pretty decent improvements. We are also investigating new cutting-edge algorithms. You can probably guess what some of those are if you attended last year's presentation. Global stockpiling. So those familiar with MineMax Scheduler know that you cannot reclaim in global solves. This is because stockpiling and reclaiming from blended stockpiles is not linear. It's non-linear. It can't be modelled as an LP problem. You're forced to run the sliding window heuristic. Numerous papers have been written on hybrid MILP approaches. Leon, our ops research engineer, he has read those papers. He is confident that he can come up with a solution. That is our highest priority research project for next year. Not only will you be able to run stockpile and reclaim within global solves, but it will also improve schedulers' ability to see the value of stockpiling and reclaiming material in future periods. This is our future, our long-term vision for MineMax Scheduler. This is just a single slide. Our strategy, like a lot of products these days, is to move to a cloud-hosted solution. We plan to offer MineMax Scheduler Cloud that can either be offered as a service or hosted in a private cloud. Customers then no longer need to buy high-powered machines to run optimizations. Running it in the cloud has the flexibility for it to be able to scale up and down and in and out with demand. You can just leverage the intense optimization power of cloud computing. You'll be able to run, thousands and thousands of scenarios for your sensitivity analysis, performing Monte Carlo simulations on variations in financials and different grades from conditionally simulated models. We're also going to offer the tools to compare scenarios as well, and basically analyze the risk associated with your life of mine plan. Before I finish up, have your say. Probably wondering what this is. We are launching the MineMax Scheduler Ideas portal. So this is a portal where customers can log on and add their ideas. So any enhancement request, any issue they're having with Scheduler, no matter how big or small it is, you'll be able to have your say on MineMax Scheduler development. You'll also be able to log in there and see what's planned for the next release as well. So if you would like access to that portal, you can use that little QR code there. It will load up your email client with an email to support@minemax.com to request access to the portal.